everyone, this is Hunter Chris again. There was a couple things that I forgot to cover in my last video for my new Arc Templar DK trial build. And these were additional item sets that you'll want to have on hand, besides the ones that I demonstrated on the Parse, which was the No Arca and the Deadly Strikes. One of those sets comes out of the new trial Aussie Cage. Let's go and pull this up really quick because I currently do not have it on hand. But it is called the Caspian's Cruel Signet set. So what it does, weapon and spell damage, minor slayer at all times, offensive penetration, perfected version will give you another weapon and spell damage, and both the perfected and the non-perfected versions. Upon dealing area direct damage, place a sword above an enemy up to once every second. You cannot place a sword on an enemy that already has one from you. After 6 seconds, the sword falls, dealing roughly 5,500 physical damage. This scales off the higher of your weapon and spell damage. Applying the sword increases your damage done by 2% for 6 seconds, stacking up to 6 times. So, for this set to work, you need to have 6 DPS in your trial group running this set. When this happens, that 5,500 damage will now be well over 30,000 damage every 6 seconds. And the damage done to the target now increases to up to 12% rather than 2% for 6 seconds. This is another set that you preferably want a front bar, but it would also work if you wear just body pieces. So again, you need to have 6 members of your raid running this set, and they all need to be hitting the same target in order for this set to work. It is considered the highest single target DPS set in the game if it is used properly. If you find yourself in content where your DPS are not all hitting the same target, or there's lots of ads, then you'll want to consider other trial sets. Again, this would be replacing your No Arca when ran. Another DPS set that I wanted to cover is out of the Sanity's Edge trial. It's called Ansol's Torment. And on this one, you get crit chance, minor slayer, offensive penetration. The perfected version will give you another crit chance, and then both versions, the perfected and non-perfected versions, will give you a flat 7% boost to damage done to monsters. And then when you perform an interrupt or a bash, then you'll get another 7% on top of that, increasing the total damage done to 14% for 10 seconds. So this set, you'll want to run it if you are performing a lot of bashes or a lot of interrupts. It is also highly recommended for dungeons and solo content for the fact that there's that extra penetration bonus. Then the other set that I wanted to mention that is worth mentioning is a craftable set called the Tideborn, which would be replacing your Deadly Strikes, highly recommended for dungeons or solo content. Basically what this set does is weapon and spell damage, offensive penetration, crit chance, and increase all direct damage done to monsters by 12%. Won't hit as hard as Deadly Strikes in your trial setting, but it is still highly recommended for dungeons and solo content, mostly because of that extra penetration that you'll get from this set. So when you combine this set with Ansol's, now look at your offensive penetration. Now this number will jump up to 7,800. That's for your base. And then that means that your tank would only need to apply major and minor breach to push you up to the penetration cap. Another thing I wanted to mention was a skill on your Templar skill line. Everlasting Sweep. You could replace your Flawless Dawnbreaker with this if you're in shorter term boss fights or mini boss fights that I would say are lasting probably a minute or maybe a minute or so. But Everlasting Sweep, basically you would launch your Standard of Might, then whenever you have this ultimate ready, then you would just go ahead and launch it. It's a very cheap ultimate, only costs 75 to use, and this is one that you can almost have up at all times. That's the beauty of using this one. So in order to make it work, if you're going to be using this, then you need to be committed to using this. Then the last thing I wanted to cover was blue tree champion points. Another thing I did not cover in my last video. Now this is for your trial setup. Exploiter, Hazard Arms, Fighting Aura, Raffle Strikes. Now if you find yourself in situations where extra heals are needed, or if you do not have a healer, Grieving Blows is a suitable substitute for Exploiter. The other one that would be a substitute for Exploiter would be, particularly in dungeons, Fighting Finesse, which would increase your critical damage done by 8%. Which goes back to the Everlasting Sweep being slotted. The reason I would recommend this for trials because look at this passive right here. Increase your critical damage done by 12%. You're actually going to be over the crit cap if you run this in a trial setting, but not if you're in the dungeon setting. So that's why I would recommend running the Everlasting Sweep in a dungeon setup, or if you're running solo content. Then that's pretty much it. Everyone, thanks for watching. Have a great day.